Bracket racing isn't just what we do, it's who we are. It's how we identify ourselves.
What does bracket racing mean to me? It's my life. It's where my people are. My idols, my family, my friends.
Bracket racing is life. Bracket life. Hello and welcome back to the Bracket Life broadcast with Brandon and Andrew. Andrew, how are we making out tonight, bud?
Oh, can't complain. It's Tuesday. There's some big racing coming up this weekend that will be worth talking about and watching here shortly. So I can't complain. February's almost done, right?
We got about 4 hours, and then it's over.
That's it.
So
March.
I was saying with that earlier. It's crazy.
Crunch time's coming up, right? Depending on when your season is supposed to start. But as soon as I see March, that's when I start getting excited, right? So
exactly. I was a bunch of Facebook posts. People were, posting it's officially time that it's like, no, I can't do that. I'm going racing. I'm like, well, yeah. I don't know where you guys all live, but apparently I need to live there because we're not there yet. We're getting close. If you're tuning in live, make sure send us a chat there, YouTube, Facebook, either way, shoot it in. Love to hear from you. It's love whenever we get to participate. Stumbled on that one. Holy frig. Just getting started too. So jump into Canadian Countdown, Andrew. We have finally a boatload of stuff going on, or that's happening.
Yeah, we got some results. We got a bunch of news, which is always kind of fun. Back into that off-season type thing is always cool to hear stuff. The racing part of it, we can go into NHRA racing kicked off with their two divisionals, Division 4 and Division 7 this weekend. So a few Canadians out on the West Coast kicking it off. I didn't see any at Division 4, but then again, that's Louisiana. It's pretty far south, so wasn't anticipating much. A lot of Canadians went out taking a shot, but the only one who kind of came up with much was BC native Sean Cowie. So Sean's in top alcohol dragster. He finished 4th in the world last year, so he kicked off a 2023 World Championship campaign in pretty good style, ran the table with the Division 7 opener, taking number 1 qualifying spot, and then running the field down on Saturday for the win. Number 1 spot with a 5:20 with a 9. Pretty stout field too, so good way to kick off the year for them after a hard off season. A few posts about things that he kind of went through that make it tough to start the year, right? And so good to see him come out of the gate swinging. From there, you move into on-track stuff, but not such a results. We got another Top Fuel pilot in Canada, which is kind of neat. Spencer Hyde finished up his Top Fuel licensing in Gainesville just last week in the Peyton Top Fuel dragster. So it sounds like they plan on, I believe he's at least running at Grand Bend's national event, doing some runs there. I don't know if he's making any NHRA races this year. I didn't see that part, but it does look like they're going to wheel the car a few times. So, congratulations to him. So Spencer will be staying in Florida as it's World Series of Pro Mod week. And there's actually quite a few Canadians either heading there, or already testing. So Spencer's running the World Series of Pro Mod. He's going to get joined by former IHRA champion Kenny Lang, Scott Wildgust in the Smokies Garage team, so PDRA racers, Justin Bond, NHRA racer from the West Coast, run them. Melanie Slemy, Melanie's from Aurelia, so much as she's living in Buffalo and working with the G-Force team, still Canadian, cheer for her. And then Eric Latino, KB Titan Motorsports, I think that's the new name for the company.
I think so.
Yeah, so Eric from our part of Ontario, they're all there. I did see, as I was kind of scrolling through social media, Kyle Harris Racing. They were talking about packing the rig up. Trailer is loaded, icicles included, ready to head for the drive to Bradenton. So I'm guessing they're heading down there to run Top Dragster as well. So we've got at least 6 different cars we can cheer for in a few classes. I did see that Nick Agostino was down south, but I didn't see any classes at this event that he was running in. So I'm not quite sure if he's just testing prior to running through there to go somewhere else and run the table with his car, or what he's looking to do. But he's down there as well. So should be a fun event. Top Dragster, Melton Motor Pro Stock, which just I'm all for. I miss that class so much. Obviously Pro Modified, World Series of Pro Mod. Factory stock, front wheel drive, and then Super Pro class. So it should be lots of fun racing there. Looking forward to watching it on Flow Racing this weekend. I broke down and bought it. I couldn't take the off season any longer with some of the racing that was going on that I couldn't watch. So
that's right.
That should be fun.
I'm still looking up for it. I haven't decided. We'll see what happens this weekend.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to do it.
This is probably
a Pro Mod, right? Like this, this is one of the coolest events for us, and Pro Mod is one of those classes that you can argue is, because it's not really a sportsman class. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they don't
100%.
treat it like a pro class. When you go to the NHRA events, they're part of the show and everything like that, but it's not the same. They're not on TV and all the other stuff and there's still a gateway for guys like yourself and I to get into that world. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not totally out of reach. I guess none of it's completely out, but
Well, it's been a launching pad too, right? So you look at like Spencer. I mean, Spencer's raced Pro Mods for quite a few years, right? And he's using it as a launch pad to go through into Top Fuel, as whatever level that they're going to go into. But like Chad Green, right? There's a Pro Mod racer who's gone Top Fuel funny car racing, right? And has still wheeled the Pro Mod. And there's many others. I mean, there's a lot of examples you can go through, but it's you don't want to call it like a launch pad class because there's certainly more than enough guys in that class and girls they're awesome racers. It's a pro level class, but it's that kind of class. It's like the step that you take to go up. It seems like. I mean, Alcohol Funny Car and Top Alcohol have always kind of been the associated one, and you see a lot more cars drivers coming out of Pro Modified, making leaps to the fuel classes. So. But it's just fun racing. It's such a wild class that, has started to really make a comeback with that wildness, right? The 8th Mile Outlaw has, I think, rejuvenated that, which is fun. And I mean, there's a lot of great Canadians with fast cars running in it. It's like the old IHRA days again. I, hate to wax nostalgic, but that's, that was a big era, right?
Yeah. Oh, and now, anything can happen in 3.5 seconds. Yeah. Right? We're on 350s here in the 8th Mile. In these Pro Mod cars, it's not going to blow somebody away if somebody goes 340 something this week, So 3.5 seconds, that's all you got.
And it's tight, right? Like, I mean, I think that the best part of this class was the fact that you look at the power riders are there, right? Like nitrous is as competitive as turbo, centrifugal supercharger, screw charger, roots even, right? Like you see guys still running those in that and being competitive in that. Like it's 32 cars within 9 100s. You can go out there and, like a guy like Scotty, he showed it last year when he went down to 4 cars at, I can't remember if it was the December or January race, right? But it was driving, he nailed the tree and made up for those few numbers that they were behind as a team and went down to 4, right? So you need a good driver. It's not like a class where you can just pay your way out of the ET. So It's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun weekend of racing in the background, probably more watching than working on anything, but
exactly.
Jumping ahead to some local stuff here, news. The Pro Sportsman Dragster, Top Sportsman, Top Dragster Series in Ontario made the announcement, $64,000 in payouts coming up this year for their 4 events, which is roughly $16,000 per race. Bonus program at the WDRA Canadian Nationals, which is the Grand Bend National event. Kind of a... I want to say rebirth, but certainly a rejuvenation of the local fast bracket stuff for Ontario, right? Before events, they're running Grand Bend for 3 of them. So June, Summer Spectacular. There's July in the Elegant Extravaganza at St. Thomas. The WDR Canadian Nationals in August, and then the Thunder by the Beach on Labor Day long weekend. So great to see that. Like, there's always been a lot of great fast bracket, top sports and top dragster teams in Ontario. Great to see that the series is getting a rejuvenation in that because there's more than enough fast cars out there. They just needed a really good, place to race and a series to race for. And this is looking like it's coming back around to do that.
Absolutely. And there's a boatload, the theme so far tonight has been talking about fast racing, first Pro Mods and the PSDS, Lustville Dragway, the Bracket Super Tour, Bracket Bonanza, the Quick 8 shootout.
Elite 16.
Elite 16.
Yep.
Shootout, top sportsman, top dragsters, 8 dragsters, 8 door cars, racing for $5,000 to win. I believe Arnie said that's going to qualify at night. No, it's going to qualify Friday and then race the Saturday night under the lights
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited for
So
that.
another big event added to the schedule and not overlapping, is it? No, I guess it is on top of the Grand Bend race.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. But regardless, there's about 7-8 hours in between the two of those places. So
That's right.
I'm
I don't
sure
think
it'll work
there's a
itself
huge
out.
impact in it, but
No.
because there's a lot of other stuff going on, right? Obviously, that weekend with that week with $10,000 to win races,
Yeah.
to start for Super Pro. So that'll be cool. But absolutely, there's a lot going on, and then now lots of track upgrades coming, lots
Well-
of improvements here.
Yeah. So fun part is, just talking to Chuck Fram, Shannonville. So they're one of the WDRA sanctioned tracks with Grand Bend and St. Thomas. He was telling me just the other day there that they've picked up, they've got to a new drag racing app, Time Ticket. So if you've ever been out there in the world, who race in Napierville or Rad Torque Raceway, or if you're one of the lucky ones in Bradenton, right, you will know about this, right? It's an app on your phone. Your time ticket comes up there. It's all set up that essentially you don't have to go to the ticket window. They have a setup that you can run. Your logbook is on there. It's all digitally operated. There's weather. You can look up opponents' databases if you've got numbers. So I would say it's a big addition, right? Chuck's got a lot going on, at Shannonville, right? And as we get down the road here, we've been talking about doing some conversation on the WDRA aspect in Canada, because that's, I think, certainly something to talk about when you've got 3 tracks, of the 5, because I keep forgetting about the track up north, right?
Yeah.
That are WDRA sanctioned, right? So that's the big part of our marketplace. But it was great to see that for Shannonville, and just neat to see that new technology, right? Like stuff like that creeping into what we're doing. To continue on the track upgrade, I think we touched on this once, but I don't think it was any official manner. Maybe I'm wrong, so forgive me if it is. Grand Bend, new AccuTime time use system coming in for 2023. Was excited to hear that. Sounds like they're coming in with a new wire. They'll have everything up and running. I believe the timeline looks for May 2-4 weekend. So if everything goes well, it's to start in April and have everything up and running for that. So that should be kind of exciting. Hopefully, if things go well, possibly our WDRA conversation will tie in a little bit with that, just because of the connections, but we'll see how that develops. More rumor than I want to say fact, like Grand Bend, but there was the rumor floating around that Toronto Motorsports Park is also acquiring a new system. Didn't get particulars on that and can't say it's confirmed, but I won't leave a good rumor at rest if it has some legs to it. But it sounded like Toronto Motorsports had acquired a system, was looking to put it in. Goes along, and it really doesn't feel like it's that far stretched, because they've spent quite a few years now spending money on reinvesting into the facility. They've done a lot, particularly in and around the auxiliary part of the track, right, and whatnot. But they're now refocusing on getting track aspects of the on-track system fixed up and truthfully replaced, right? So kind of exciting. Hopefully that is not just a rumor, that it's got some more legs to it than just that, but that would be exciting. So that kind of wraps up everything I could find and see in the world. I'm sure it's not all encompassing by any means, but it's about as encompassing as I could find and hear and see. So
Can't complain about that countdown.
no, I
Right.
think there's a
A
lot
lot
to
of good
get
action.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good action. So as most of you all know, we do have a special guest tonight, Andrew. We will get ready. I'll let you fire him in there. Get him
Okay.
wound up. You're on fire tonight, bud. You're killing it. You're doing a
Well,
great
it's
job.
it's has probably nothing to do with the energy drinks I've been killing for the last
That's right.
6 hours to try to keep
That's right.
rolling here, right? So
Beating them up.
that's we need a sponsor from them badly. Just anyone with
That's
an energy
right.
drink company. If you want to get in on this, I'll
That's right.
vouch for anything.
Yeah.
So Michael Beard, we've had him on the show before. He's got a resume that precedes itself. Great racer. I mean, I don't think if you know anything about him, he's a fantastic foot brake racer. He holds his own against the world. A long history in promotion. So he's worked for many years under Beaver Bob at Beaver Springs, was kind of how he got into the side of promotions and event aspects while still racing. He's worked for IHRA during the Bill Bader era. He's been part of the Loose Rocker promotions for 12 years, from 2011 to 2022. If that math was right. Forgive me if I got that wrong. 2023, Mike sprung out and he's got Staging Light Promotions. They got 3 big events this year. So again, not new to the big events. The Southern Door Car Showdown, April 14th to 16th at Darlington. The Mid-Atlantic Footbrake Showdown, April 21 to 23 at the Motor Mile Dragway in Virginia. That's a neat track if you don't know the layout on it. It's kind of fun to go check it out. Oktoberfest. This is the one I got circled. Bracket National, September 22nd to 24th.
That's right.
We'll talk about that later. Edgewater Motorsports Park in Ohio. Literally tonight, have that one marked on the calendar. Went through it. We're looking at vacation time between me and my family, and that one's booked off for Andrew to head south.
Sounds good.
And then practice tree events. What a participant. This guy hits up every practice tree event that I think exists anywhere within drivable distance to get home on Monday morning. So with that said, I'd like to introduce the one, the only, the fabled, Michael Beard. Michael, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on tonight on somewhat last minute notice. I will throw it out there. But we always appreciate having you on and talking to you because it's always a great deal of fun.
Andrew, Brandon, thanks again for having me.
It's going to be good. I'm excited for this. Like we kind of talked about it a little bit, we got to get the Oktoberfest one out of the way, right? Andrew kind of hinted to that, right? Oh, Oktoberfest, we're going racing, we're doing all this stuff, or Oktoberfest. Wait a minute, it's in September. Why is that, Michael?
That's probably one of those things that we're going to get into. How do you put together a big money bracket race? But we'll fast forward to this one for an event, right? So you've got a brand new event. Well, one of the ways that I go about things is dig into the local history or something interesting or something that stands out about the local area. Edgewater is in Cleves, Ohio. It is right outside of Cincinnati. And I did not know this until I started doing this research. So this was actually part of it. Cincinnati is home to the largest Oktoberfest celebration. That's a thing. I didn't know that prior, but I went, we've got something that'll work here. At that time, I'd already selected the date, so I knew. And in high school, I took German language classes for 4 rounds to know that Oktoberfest actually starts tradition mid-September. It ends first weekend in October. It starts in the middle of September. Our event will more than likely the Cincinnati Oktoberfest celebration. So
I like it. That's cool, right? It's neat when you talk about coming up with a name for it. As you say, to dig into that local history and then how you found that out and whatnot. Like, it's just a neat story.
Thanks. It is one of those things that you don't think. You're working on putting a race together, and is it going to be a last minute? Well, we've done a lot of events over the years, so a lot of the good.
I hear you. So as you said, right, we want to talk about promoting races and things like that, and kind of how we get about it in these conversations that we have. It was good that we kind of didn't get to talk a whole lot before because we just would have wasted all the good stuff then. So starting out, you put it right. You have to come up with a name. You have to come up with this, that, whatever else. How do you first? You decide. All right, let's do a race. So I want to do whatever it is, big money race. How do you decide on a purse? How do you decide on a location? And then, finally a date, how do you kind of go about this, or what do you look at in the factors of today, especially with how busy the schedule is?
That is exactly it. And to describe this is to go over the process. And this didn't happen. Of course, you're familiar with the master schedule.
Yep.
I love that. Started for my personal use. I think it was 2015. May have been earlier. I just grab all of the dates that I can that I see posted on. People will message me. It's pretty much anything $5,000 and up. I also throw in NHRA national and divisional events and PDRA and NMC just because it's important in terms of scheduling to know when and where things are wrecked conflict. You still kind of want to know where national and divisionals and bracket finals and things like but in the last, say, year and a half, doing a lot of graphic design work for Kentucky Dragway. It's the former Mountain. Aaron and Carrie Sipple doing a great job down there in Clay City. And we did some talking in the off season about partnering up and doing an event. So the first thing I do is go to the master schedule and try to with their existing schedule, or looking at the 2022 schedule, might they have some holes in their schedule. So you've got, well, one, is there a date that works for you? Back to. So that's the very first stumbling block. I must have poured for 3 months just staring at this. Well, that date might work. Well, what's the next step? Well, you want to make sure the major conflicts in the region, obviously, but one of the most important parts of any successful event is the one weather. I hate weather. The only thing I hate worse than weather, as a matter of fact, I saw somebody on a page just an hour or two ago, the track event, and the complaining ensued. Well, you're rescheduled. Well, the following week, it looks like it's going to do this. And I said, 12-day forecast. Sure there is. Here's a screenshot of one. And I'm like, that's weather entry. You cannot tell me with a straight face that so-called forecast days. We're lucky if it doesn't change in 3 days. Let us. I've seen that overnight change way too many times. So 12 days back in January, Shady Side had announced their deal that was just a week or two ago. Weeks in advance, these guys said, I heard it was going to snow that weekend. I'm like, how do you? Like, there's no basis in reality at all. So now, having said all that, there are still some general currents that happen. Not much of a farmer's almanac guy, but I can give. When we first put together the Autometer Northern Class Nationals, or stocks, I believe our first year was 2013. We worked on that event leading up to it. And I knew that the date on the weekend in May, just because of how all the NHRA races fell. So you can't schedule a big stock, super stock race on top of a national and divisional event. Fairly close in the region. So everybody will say, when you say, I want to put together a new race, where should I have it? Well, 6 feet from my back. Okay. Everybody's going to say my local track. So everybody says, Bowling Green. So I go to, again, weather forecasting. But one of my go-tos is Weather Underground. It's wunderground.com, that app on my phone. It's good for week of, because you can look at a lot of, also has weather history. And the first thing I do is look at 10 data. At Bowling Green, the first weekend of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it rained every single one of those. Now, I'm not a Farmer's Almanac guy, but I'm not taking that bet. Like, the odd thing is the Indianapolis region was roughly the same. Columbus region, although, triangulate that. You've got Columbus. They're fairly close together, but for some reason, the weather was far, far better. Anything for 3 days times 10 years. And I told guys, just historically, you may get a little pop-up shower, one out, but it should be relatively temperate, and we're going to raise. See what happened. We have one little pop-up. I think it poured on Tuesday, which had nothing, and we got one little pop-up on Saturday, and it was one of the coolest events.
We had quite a few Canadian guys who went down there, I believe, and did well, and came home and raved about it. Just they had a blast. Some did okay down there. Others just, didn't go rounds. But the common theme was just a blast, right? So I remember it got me excited. I wish I'd had a car at that time for that.
Yep, you own the $3,000 gamblers. So, like a good for instance. So, I've got a new event, as you talked earlier, Southern Door Car Showdown, presented by McCarty Auto Parts. Always a big shout out to Bug McCarty. Order any kind of sportsman drag racing. And the guys just ate it. Thank you, Bug, for your support. So that race, April 14 to 16. So let's go to April. Let's look at 2022. In that general, in 2022, it's somewhere between 76 and 85 degrees, but it's not a 30 to 50 spread, is it? That's just 21.
Just for those who are watching, or not watching, but listening online, Bike's online right now, going through the historical data for that weekend, just in case you can't see it.
Here's, I promise. But 2021, 14th through the 16th, 70 to 86. It's roughly the same. 10 years, you're probably going to see much the same thing. There's going to be some outliers here and there. You see it do the same thing every weekend for 10 years. I'm going to do that again. So there was a couple of ideas, Kentucky, just looking at the master schedule and its season. Like our March and April tends to be, in terms of people's schedule, because a lot of folks haven't started points races yet. Start points racing in Canada in June.
Pretty well.
Late May, but de facto June. Yeah.
Yeah.
May, that late.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Even in central Pennsylvania, growing up at Bagway, I remember when first day of points was first weekend in March. It was cold, and I remember running points first weekend in March, and the second would have 93 and got 3 feet of snow. So we were off for a couple weeks, but we got that first race in, and that was a big thing. The other neighboring track, dry until first week of April at best. But again, you've got certain regions, and maybe temperatures are okay, but it's a really rainy certain regions where it may not be other ones. So again, we're very inexact science, but you do as much research as you can. Take it with a giant grain of salt, but it's something that has to factor in. Okay, so let's assume that we've found something. Your schedule between not having so many conflicts and way decent. Starting with, I didn't even go into it saying I want to do a box race. I want to do a door. I actually did go into it saying I want to do a door car race. I want to do a foot brake race. But it wasn't. It has to be this race at this track on this date kind of thing. It was the availability in terms of scheduling in the region, the weather, cross with availability, and say on that weekend at that, what's going to make sense.
Now, one thing I guess I view at this point, like you've identified potential tracks, not the track. Is that kind of a fair assessment of like when you're looking at the regions, or are you just looking at multiple tracks that you could work with? Because that's something I find interesting in how you've operated as well. Is that you've got a history of not a lot of different tracks, but you've certainly had this portfolio of events you've looked at in different facilities. So, have you like at this point you're looking at specific facilities, or you just got a few that this region, this has this many tracks, this could work?
I mean, some of it is level of facility. Facilities do matter. Early on in history, we started out at some racetracks and ended up moving events to other facilities, general region, whether they're larger facility, then more up-to-date amenities, timing system, tracks case may be, and we saw massive improvements in the car count. You vote with their feet. They go to places that they like. I mean, it's a simple. I mean, you could take, like, are you going to take the $1 million race to a little local mom and pop outlaw track? Like, I can't even, or would I? But like, you wouldn't even consider that because one, you're not going to have the, and just go down through the list where you as a want to go race. Now, you also have to level a facility with cost. So it would be cool to have Max, right? Even the Fling doesn't go to ZMAX, which is owned by the same people. They don't go to ZMAX. And the other run a regular weekly program. What do they have to work with in terms of?
Because that's,
do they have a weekly program? So who's working there? So you've got to bring everybody in, which NHRA event. I believe they also have like a beautiful place. You ain't running late. And in order to pay for a rather large nut to crack, you got to have a bunch of cars. It takes a bunch of time to run them. So right off the bat, the list. That's why you don't like the facility is awesome. I've raced their events a couple times, but there's just certain things working against it. So you've got top tier that's so top tier that it's somewhere between logistically not going to work to bottom tier where to. So you've got to find that balance there somewhere. Another bit of working with racetracks is relationships. And that is what our entire on is the people. And we're basically family. I've seen Andrew in person maybe 2-3 more. I've Brandon twice. But Andrew and I have been fairly. I can't even remember when we first started talking online. It was
Online or in person?
long
So 05 is when you called me for the first time and I stammered through a interview with you, I believe. 05 or 06? 05.
Oh,
So,
okay. But yeah, relationships, and that at the facilities too. Uh, Darlington Dragway is operated by Jeff Miles. I remember Jeff as a kid in the Bader era. We were at Carolina Dragway, which was owned by Jeff's dad. Jeff sitting in the tower along with myself and all the other tractors meeting. So he was learning the game back then, and he's been at Carolina, Georgia, Memphis. The wide-ranging experience he has among the best in our industry, and always enjoyed him as a person. I feel it's somebody I can trust. He's put in the systems in place at Darlington where and do my end of the program. I'll do what I'm good. We'll do what we're good at, and Darlington will do what Darlington's good at. You know, match there. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, finding a facility, I'll be honest, I had thought at all about Edgewater because I didn't think there would be an opportunity. In researching, I had a stack of papers printed from anything Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, general region around here. And again, cross-referencing with the master schedule, chairs, they're going to be a spot. And Edgewater did a lot of their own $5,000 and quite a bit of them. And I'm like, well, they do a lot of their own money races. I doubt the thing. So I considered going other avenues. Preston Mitchell was a racer local to there who also happened to have been American Door Slammer Nationals a couple years ago. He messages me out of the blue and you need to talk to Rob. Rob Winley is the owner manager there at Edgewater. And I think Preston had already talked to him a little bit and put a bug in it. I think Preston really wanted to have that American Door Slammer without driving so far. I didn't ask, but he may have had some of his ambitions there.
I don't fault him. I think I messaged you a couple of times about what can we get close to Buffalo, right, or whatnot. So yeah,
well, we moved. We're a little closer. So I talked to Rob on the phone. We probably chatted for a good hour, and we were on the. I'd never met the guy before. We were on the same page, everything right out the gate on how we want races to be operated. Lanes, time prepare, all of these things. Where I had run at one of Edgewater's races toward the end of October. Like to race as a customer at tracks that I my customers to. See, like I've always liked the look of Edgewater. Cool old facility. It's got the big grandstands. It's got really long and so operationally, that's very handy. Lots of trees, like just a gorgeous little, like they call it a park, and it really is. There is a good bit of asphalt parking here. There's trees there, there's grass there. So there's a variety of parking depending on what you like. It's probably available. And then when I started to put together, he said, I've got this date or this date. I think he had available. and one of them was going to be the same weekend as Marco Abruzzi's up in Dragway 42, and I'm like, yeah, no, like, absolutely not. And the other one, kind of a risk when you look at it initially. That weekend, where are we at again? September 4. That's the same weekend as the IHRA Division 5 bracket finals. And your first instinct is to say, you can't. That is exactly what I said years ago when Peter Biondo and Kyle Seipel at the time took the spring fling. I believe it was a fall, and it was on top of the NHRA Division 1 bracket finals at Bristol. And I went, you can't do that. Nobody schedules on top of a bracket finals. Nobody. The people that go to the bracket finals went to the bracket finals. The people that go to the fling went to the fling. Summer, I had the opportunity to be both the race director and the announcer at the 3 bracket finals at Dragway 42 here in Ohio. And I've run 1 bracket finals a couple of years ago out of Pittsburgh, 29. I've been out of that scene for over a decade. I'm seeing maybe a dozen guys that are your typical travelers. There's become this very defined size that run big money races and travel all the time. And then you've got this on local points. And the one time they travel a year is the bracket finals. A little bit crossover and mix, but nothing like you would see 10, 20 years ago. Yeah. I remember in the mid 2000s, like 2005 Carolina, and I ran IHRA Stock Eliminator. I ran Big Money Bracket. I was running points at either Rockingham to start out with, or Pageland Dragway. So I'm running time. I'm just beating my car up and running up and down the road. I don't know a lot of people these days. You're a local points racer or you're a big bucks racer. Yeah, there's some people, and maybe there's a guy that may just pick 1 or 2 big money races. But yeah, just a very different split from what you saw years ago. What's the opposite end of the spectrum? The mega buck racers. September weekend is located on the calendar. The OG Million, which is now at St. Louis,
yep,
and the Fall Fling at Bristol. Go look at a map. Where's Edgewater?
I'm going to guess just somewhere
right in between. Yeah. It's almost exactly in between. I think the trip from St. Louis is like 5.5 hours, and the trip from Edge like 5.5 to 6. Like they may be like an hour different. Now the race is the same weekend, Rockingham, in North Carolina. So if you want to go from the OG Million and to the fling, and I expect there'll be a good number of people that will do that. It's like another 600-mile loop, if I recall. Yep. Super mega buck guys like Williams brothers, they're going to Rockingham. Get money they can, and they should. They're the best at what they do. Well, I will wish them good luck. But I do think that there will be a small percentage that I can pick up from the million that'll go, you know what, $20,000, let's go to Edgewater. I have a couple days to relax or do some maintenance on the car, home in between, where you don't have to be straight travel, because the SFG race, Fall Fling, they're all going to be, put it that way, you're going to be there all week.
So
to have a little break in, they do some good.
So is that so when you look at it from that, so you've got the location, you're looking at where the Oktoberfest race is. You'd touched on the 20K, right? As being like maybe that's enough to make the stopover. So once you've had the discussion, you found like, yeah, this ownership group is like, we're on the same page. We can walk in there and we're not going to be fighting button heads on fundamental stuff of how we want to run races, how, I want to run a race and how you want to run your facility that I've rented. Where'd the 20 come up? Like, is that a number that you looked at and went, that's enough to attract these racers looking to come through? Or was that a number that's like, it's not putting the, I want to say medium money. It's not medium money, but not mega bucks money. Like, it's big money, right? Numbers. Is that an appropriate amount? Is that enough to bring these in? Like, is this way on your factor of where you come up with 20s instead of like twin 10s, right? Is to make sure it's enough to get those traveling guys to come in without, touching on the mega money world? Or where does that come from?
Well, it's got a proven history. It's something that we did with Lears, and I like that 10, 20, and 10. I think that's a sweet spot. He is attainable. It's a 10, a 20, and a weekend. And the guys at a practice tree race I went to this weekend are like, that's cheap. I'm like, oh, no, it's good. So with a $400 weekend entry, in the 10 granders, $200 round money in the 20 grander. I mean, fourth round on Saturday, you paid for your weekend entry. You can pay for your weekend entry. And that's how I would like to approach things, because I'm a racer too. I look at it, any race, what do I got to do to get my money back? Or it. So round money's always been extremely important for me. I'm still a pickup. My rig may be paid off, but I still got to put gas in it. I got hotels to pay, probably some buybacks. So I think you want to at your expenses. And
it's funny because it's a good racer mentality to touch on, because I know like Brandon and I and even a few people at the practice tree event that Brandon had a couple weeks ago, we touched on this subject of, we're all watching the split because we're not good enough to be in the split at the practice tree race and whatnot, and we're all dividing up the money what it is. And this is a practice tree race. I mean, they're in no overhead other than the hotel room if you've gone there, and I'm looking like, oh, I'm cutting this up. Like, I want to pay for my weekend. I want to pay for my hotel. I want to go out for a big Denny's breakfast, not the little Denny's breakfast, right? And
Whoa.
The other guys looking at it going, well, why would you do that? I'd rather win 5K. Well, okay, I got you. But like, back to that business decision part, right? Like the round money. I've always tried to build events when I did events off of how far do I got to go to say I'm even now on the day, the weekend, as entry fees, and then maybe more than that, right? And it's funny how everyone's in a little bit different boat, right? And different thought train. And I've always liked those type of events that had that emphasis on, 4 rounds and your weekend's paid for. And it's like, I think I can do that. I think I can string 4 win nights together, or at least 3 with a buyback or re-entry help, right? And it's funny the mentalities that you've got to go across on this.
And then the way you have to handle it as well, right? Like, because the attitude of once you're paid for after round 4, then round 5, if you're paying attention to that, round 5 is a little easier, right? It's a little weight off your shoulders to a certain degree for racing, right?
And that's something you're back at the pit. That's not what you're thinking about when you're actually staging the car. Just back on the memory, and I've got a game plan, execute to the best of your ability. There are times that I'll wave to the starter or wave to a photographer on the wall. I don't have that final race. It's good for me. But I'm not worried about all these extra time. Yeah, when I'm doing my logbook after a run, I'm going, we're paid for, but by the time you get to the lanes, you're not thinking about it. But the practice tree this weekend, Little Bang and Back put together their main event, but trees, it was $70. And if you got to so if you got down to 16, you were getting $100, if I recall. That's okay. It's going to have X number of people there and reverse engine that go winner, runner up, semis, quarters, eights. You got to figure out how many rounds is going to go to even know. It's pretty standard at a practice tree race. You're going to have to go at least 6 rounds to get a dime. Probably 7 if it's a big one. So you want to participate. I want a lot of shots at it. Now, after the main event was a $100 entry fee for one entry. It was a 24-person shootout. Basically, 32. So it's a 5-round race, right? Paid back to the semis. Win 3 rounds to get the semis. Pays. I'm like, it's a bigger investment, but technically it's a better deal. Yeah. All I have, the only thing is you have to execute on that. All you have to do is
exactly. Right. You lay it out, right? I just need 3 win lights. Well, it's getting to those 3 that you need. You know what I'm saying? No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But again, it's a process, whether it's practice tree race or a big car, dollars in, dollars out. You know, what are your chances? And I'd actually or tried to put a pencil to it many years ago on ability of winning a race. And I don't know that I did that course in college, but I believe that it might make some semblance of sense. If you take your round and take that to the power of how many rounds it is. The percent shot of winning first round, your chances of winning first round and second round times 85%. So it's going to dwindle a little bit, and it keeps going down. If you've got an 85% round win percentage, that's super good. Your chance of winning a 6-round race, I'm not going to sit and do the math, but anyway, it's going to be better racing, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't care how good your round win percentage is, it's always going to be tough to win. So how many rounds do I have to go, and what I'm getting my money back?
So maybe this would be a good chance we get to talk about. So we've got money set up. We've talked about like how you set the for the race. I guess one of the things that I find now, and I want to get behind the veil just a little bit. So when we talked, we had Peter on. We were talking to him about his fling events. I mean, we were shocked. Like there was 35 employees,
give or take,
give or take, right? That he brings with him to the fling events, and Brandon and I were talking a bit about that kind of off air a little bit, right? Just the type of brand they're looking to bring, like that's, you know, like Bellagio top level type stuff, because sounds like he wants to bring all his own people. Everything's controlled, and it feels that way when you're going to these events. Mm-hmm. So you've talked a lot about like the type of tracks you're looking to go to. Like, does this ownership group and this management have the same mentality as me? And what I took from that is like you're looking to utilize a lot of their staff, like your staffing requirements, you know, going into these type of events. What does that hinge on, and what the track can bring? Like, how many would you roll into a place like, you know, I use Darlington and maybe Edgewater just as the 2 places, because Darlington's fairly well known for big money races. There's a lot of promotions roll through Darlington events. Edgewater does a lot of their own, which means to me they must know what they're doing, but you know, isn't as well known as being the destination for premier promotional outside promotions. How do you bring staff? What are you looking at? What's you know, how much do you bring to the table, and is it the same at every track you go to, right? That you've booked?
Well, on my end, traveling light right now, but it's folks that you know and trust. Base director at the events, and I'm sure you're familiar with Ron Huntley Jr. And he's a lot more than just a screen reader. So if I am out babies or dealing with an issue that a customer has, I can be crazy is going to go on. You know, Ron is extraordinarily competent. Like that's the word. Like Ron's extremely good at what he does and what anyone might expect. And that's all levels, every pair. And I've done that myself. Again, playing announcer and or race, you see everything. Years ago, I was announced at Rockingham, and we're in Super Pro, Top ET, whatever. See a dragster that's 68 on the tree, and that's weird. About 2 pairs later, it happened again, and I shut the mic off. Race director, stop the race. You got a photo cell hanging up. No. A pair later, it happened again, and I said, "You've got 3 minutes before the first racer gets to the tower." Like, well, that photo cell was brand new. Probably why. We've all had some part that was brand new out of the box that just wasn't right. Yep. So we got a line of at least 3 racers at the tower door. We did stop the race. Did not have a single problem the rest of the weekend. But you had to be able to recognize that's something that, when you're announcing, you for weird stuff, and if something doesn't look right, something. And
so is that, and because you do like you have quite a bit of announcing, right? So I mean that's in your career in general. Do you take that opportunity to jump on the mic at the events? Is that like a too busy aspect for you at times? Like I know I've heard you on the mic, and I'm trying to remember things, and my memory's awful at times, so I'm sometimes projecting what I think I remember versus what actually happened. Do you prefer to be on the mic to do these type things? Like that way you're, more in control of your event because it's you at the mic, knowing that Ron's very capable of these type things, or where's your comfort level of doing that type of things? Because that's something that I've watched, and you see guys running the show from the mic. I feel like I want to say the baiters, and I might be going on the limb on that one, but I mean, for all the years, like the people you expect to be the ones calling the shots are on the mic like all day. And you almost sounds like you're listening to the shot being called of what's going to happen right then. It's not been a pre-recorded, talked about with the announcer trying to get it right. It's like, this is what we're going to do right now because that's the decision they just made.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how because I was hired to do both positions. So, and you have an extraordinarily clear view of the staging lanes all the way to the top of the hill. So you can't see the staging lanes. So there you need some extra form of communication. What do the staging lanes look like before you can make decisions on what needs to happen? And one of my favorite races that we did was years ago. We were at Killcare, also Southwest Ohio, and I worked the head of staging. And I had the headset, so I ran the race from head of stage to see every single one of my customers. And that was a blast. At most events, I get out of the tower for good bits here, but I'm also trying to keep an eye on what's happening on the racetrack. Again, Ron will see and inform if, hey, maybe in the case may be. But when you physically have eyes on it yourself, like I've seen a trash trip, it pops up 2.5 second ET. Obviously, that's wrong. Like before the racer can even, I already saw it. Here's what we'll do. Take care of you. And I think that gives some, but it's just impossible unless you are the announcer to see every single. But as a promoter, you almost be that guy in every single position. I think that's kind of a Bader thing. He liked to have his fingers in anything and everything, but he also had good, you can't physically be everywhere. So you surround yourself with good people. Ron's one of those, but there are times that you can, some other folks to supplement where needed. But again, an ability where you know and trust the staff that's already in place, I don't have any problem with a different staff from track to track.
So do you meet with the staff? So I guess so when I was running my promotion for a little while, I mean, I was fortunate. I only ran at 2 tracks, only ran at the 1 track once, but a big part of my thing was, here's my rules package, here's my how I want to run things package, and if I couldn't have a group meeting, I made a point. I went to every staff member working Saturday, and if there was anyone different on Sunday, we had a heart to heart on, here's my expectations for you, and here's where you're going to find me if you need me, depending on where I was. Right. I imagine that's a part of what you look to do, particularly when you have staff that's, I would say part of the rental, but part of the facility staff. Or how do you approach that? Like, what's the way to get on the same page with them?
Well, and the biggie is, I'd say, is one of the most important areas. I mean, over the years, the rules section of the event flyer has gotten ginormous with a free microfiche reader.
Yeah.
For all of you old microfiches, because again, I've always said that rules are made because somebody did something stupid. Be addressed. That you have to put in writing. But operationally, there's variances from one race to another. The general rules are, your class rules may be a little different. No box versus foot brake. In terms of how the event is run, again, I'm the race director, so I give that. The biggest thing is be different from one of my events from how the locals do it. Things. How much time do you give where they break? So I've got extra copies of the event flyer. Here's how we do things. And generally speaking, it's really pretty straight.
So with that said, and I guess we're just coming up a little over an hour here, so I think we've got through some good stuff, because I think this is really important at times for racers to understand how this process happens, right? Conversation I seem to have far too often with people is the misconceptions of how a race is built, why it's built, the criteria in which it's built. Why the hell would someone put it on that weekend at that track for that much money? Well, here's why. And it's neat to kind of hear that, how that breaks down. Right. But oftentimes I found, and I'm speaking from my personal experiences on this one, is the things that happen behind the scenes that racers never see, never understand, that they may never even experience. What is stuff that happens every time you're out, or almost every time you're out, that I think a racer wouldn't have any appreciation for, because they just have no idea it happens, but is a consistent, thing that you're running into, the figuring out how to get past this issue that they'll never see. I feel like there's a behind the scenes aspect that racers just don't appreciate as well, unless they've been in the tower, understood it, or have people that, have had friends working there. Right. Because it's amazing sometimes when you open up and go I was just in the tower and this happened. They're like, what? Well, I didn't notice that, or this didn't happen, or, things of that nature. What would be something you'd want to open the veil on that just would make it easier for the world to understand what it's like to actually run an event?
I've been on the inside of it for so long that I'm not even.
It kind of makes it tough, I guess, either. Right?
But I think the biggest one that gets talked about, argued like dogs over for years, the huge misconception that a straight buyback is better than re-entry. And the race feels that, I want a straight buyback because I pay my money. I'm right in the second value. Did you? Let's put a pencil to it. Well, buyback. No, you got from first round to second round quicker, but second round takes longer. With re-entry, does take down to get to second round because you've got the re-entry in between round to the end is shorter. The actual number of pairs that goes buyback and re-entry is nearly identical. The only difference at all is here or there. And I actually had to screenshot my with both setups with a buy to prove that. And once somebody saw it, they're like, "Oh my god, I get it now." I'll be honest. I love re-entry as a racer because if I don't have to buy back, I'm downtown for lunch.
Yeah.
You know? Or I'm going to bench race with my buddies. Extra downtime, and unless it is a huge, like 400 plus, it's really not that long that it takes to run the re-entry. This thing that re-entry allows you to do is pay better. And I'm like, well, one, that's a big value in and of itself. And all, depending on the car count, there are times that re-entry will race in terms of the number of rounds. If you've got 170, 180, it's going to be an 8-round race with re-entry with 10 rounds. Well, you thought you got something for nothing. Now it's taking you an extra round to get to the win. To balance that. Now, the one place where a buyback works better than re-entry, a really top-heavy purse. If it doesn't pay back very far, yes, a track will do straight buyback. But at a race like ours, where we're paying third-round winner, appreciable amount of money, that's made possible because of re-entry. I want a straight buyback. Well, here, one of two things is going to happen. Then, online, either the cost of the buyback would have to go up, or the round money would have to go down. Again, you've got to balance the value there. And something that the question was, what's something that people don't think about? That actually gives the Motor Mania TV guys a break. Mark's up on the scaffold for 14 days.
I was going to say, like, that's one of the often lost things on the broadcast, right? Is you're watching the camera pan back and forth for 14 hours, 15 hours, depending on the length of the event. And I mean, I don't know them well by any means, but I've seen them a few times, and this isn't like an 8-person Flow Motorsports or 10-person Flow Motorsports team. These are often just 2, 3, maybe folks, right? Like for a weekend. So those 15-hour days are 3 people, right? And I'm not sure about how they operate their deal, but it's, there's no union mandated coffee breaks and lunch breaks here, I don't think, right? So yeah, that re-entry round affords a little bit of a relief before this gets too far, right?
I think it's generally 2 people. Yeah. So you've got production manager and the scaffold. Yeah. So there's not people to. So yeah, that would definitely be one of those things that nobody.
So I guess as we're getting to this point here, maybe it's a good chance to kind of wrap things around. So we talked about this earlier, like you still race, and you're racing more now than I've seen you in previous years, right? So in between the 3 events you've got, the busyness of I mean, you do a lot of work on the flyers. I see it all the time, right? You're constantly showing the flyers for other folks that you're making and doing through your business. What's on your schedule for racing? I've seen you've raced at places like Empire and made trips up there, which is the closest I've seen you come to Canada for a little while due to the lack of IHRA racing, the change in the landscape. What's on your schedule for this year? Where are you looking to hit up and go to? Luskville is a correct answer too, if you want to throw it out in there.
That's right.
It was actually the last time that I was racing in Canada was prior to the pass deal coming in. So yeah, that was a long time ago. IHRA races that I know I'm going to go to. were willing. World Foot Race 250 Goldberg side Sheriff Pennington. Here in Ohio, we've got the Hootenanny events, which brought out with promoting practice tree races. A few weeks ago, they just $1 practice tree race, and I was lucky enough to win the bottom ball and won a free entry to the Labor Day 250K. So there's $1,000. FRB racers, it's Andy Anderson, Weigert. They've got some good up this year. They're at Maple Grove and Raceway. I haven't been to Maryland in a good long time, so I'm looking forward to going back. But the biggie that's different, checking one off the bucket list, I've wanted Galen Rollison's foot brake 150 in Gulfport, Mississippi. That's one, if she wasn't still taking classes and probably his finals that week or something, be able to get my wife to go to. But one of these days.
We've had a few Canadians hit up Galen's races at Gulfport when they were down there, and like just spoke nothing of highly. Like it's just awesome. I've been to some of the Great American races, right, and had a good time. But yeah, it sounds like that little track in Louisiana. I'm not sure how little it is. I say that. That's probably not accurate, maybe, but
yeah, it's the early American race years. It started out at No Problem, which is Bellarose, Louisiana, and ran with them at Memphis a time or two. One that I have not been to yet. Galen, along with taking over the operation of Gulfport Dragway, and I was lucky enough to get a chance to logo Gulfport Dragway and flyers for Galen for many years. Looking forward to being able to support him back. Take up 2 more minutes of your time. Complete and total tangent since we brought up that and at No Problem Raceway. And I saw him at the story, and I felt bad about it, but you'll know where I'm going in a second. Again, water delivery at our house. Outside in the driveway is the Volare for all the world to see. And starts unloading water, sees the drag car, and what's the first question he asks? Street Outlaws? Not really. It's not my first second. I go, you know John Doe? He's like, well, yeah. That's it. I ran him in a problem raceway in Bellarose, Louisiana at like 3:30 in the morning. He's like, now my delivery guy thinks I'm the. He's like, all he thinks of. Well, I think Scott Taylor, but track race different. That Scott Taylor was a bad dude. Bracket race and won a lot of track championships of the heads up stuff.
I've heard him talk about his bracket racing. Like you, if you watch some of the stuff he does on YouTube, he's mentioned it, and I've always been curious, like, because I never knew much about him. And again, it sounded like he didn't speak about it much, right? But I was always kind of curious how he stacked up in the world. If that was just a small venture, or if he was, real into it deep.
He was good and aggressive finish line drive both ends. I was lucky to get around him the one and only time that we raced. To support the World Foot Brake Challenge as a sponsor. He sponsored some of the Gamblers races and in a lot of different aspects of the sport.
So we have a new guy to cheer for if you're a bracket guy between Disco and Scott Taylor then, right? Because I don't know Disco by any means. I've only ever met him once through people that racers up here. But the fact that the guy used to bracket race, not natural affinity to just want to see someone do well, right? actually kind of cool that Scott did it now. Be interested to see if there's anyone else out there now that I think about it, outside of David Bird Jones. He's bracket raced and done some things here and there, right? I don't know his career at all, so I'm just stretching at this moment, but nonetheless.
Well, I think we're pretty well there. It was a good show, right? We learned a lot, got a lot of stuff. Michael, we're gonna get it like wrote down the criteria of it for everybody, right? Because there's so much that goes into it that people don't realize when planning an event and when running an event. So it's cool to have these talks. We have more questions, so we, just in case we ran out of conversation, like that, we had some extra stuff prepared. So I'd love to do this again sometime. Maybe before our season starts. We have 4 more months, I guess. Well, not 4, I guess. It's March now. 2 months. Holy frick.
Yeah.
I guess 2 months before we go racing. So maybe we'll be able to do this again. But it was really cool. We appreciate you being, taking the time to do this with us. Obviously, you've got, just between the master schedule, I'd imagine you don't have much time going on. I guess maybe now it'd be a little more relaxed. You got most of the events set up now. Most of them should be posted. But anyways,
there'll be some that come in from time to time, and I still just keep my eye pop up. I'll add it to the master schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny thing, and looking back on it, we really just kind of hit the surface, selecting a date and a location.
Exactly.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into and actually race weekend or sponsorship. There's so much to it.
It's a very deep subject to get into it. I
so
think, right?
long that again, Andrew used the term in the broadcast, muscle memory. You don't think about all these little details, you just automatically do it. You don't necessarily have to go through checklists. Done it for well over a decade. Do this, do this, do this. It's just art. You've got a game plan, execute.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. So like I said, thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate your time. We appreciate everybody else that kind of came on and was paying attention. It was a little choppy at times and whatnot, but it's life of doing live podcasting, right? So that's all good. But yeah, it was really cool. Like I said, we are just touching the surface for this. I'm excited to eventually, have my own events and then put them on. We got a practice crew one under our belt now, so we can only keep going up from here. But either way, it was really cool. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks again, Michael. It's cool. Andrew, thank you again. We'll whip it up. We got a fancy new technology here.
Uh-oh.
I can show that off. The Shop Bracket Life Apparel, the little on your screen. If you pause it right now, you can check it out. Go shop the Bracket Life stuff. There's a bunch of deals I got to wrote down. I think the sweaters. Oh, here we go. Hoodies are $40, $30 crew necks, and $18 t-shirts on there. So yeah, go check it out. Get ready for, looking good for race season. It's coming up. But we will talk to you guys all in 2 weeks again. Andrew will be back. We'll have some big news, hopefully. Have some more good conversation about drag racing. Michael, thanks again. And talk to all you guys later.
And Rachel behind the scenes, thank you all so much. Really enjoyed it, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
You too.
Bracket racing isn't just what we do. It's who we are. It's how we identify ourselves.
What does bracket racing mean to me? It's my life. It's where my people are. My idols, my family, my friends.
Bracket racing is life. Bracket life.